Some incredibly interesting new data on playable races combined with actual datamined models paints a much clearer picture on who we could be playing next in the World Soul Saga. It is now obvious that no one cares about the earthen, with only 0.2% people playing them, but seeing that a massive change obviously happened behind the scenes in the middle of the World Soul Saga, it does seem like Blizzard is accommodating popular requests and actual evidence on their audience. Elves are insanely popular, so a new type of an elf or a naga seems very likely. Humans are also incredibly popular, making vrykul a massive possibility to be playable quite soon. Furthermore, we have datamined information for the ethereals, some possibilities for the Amani trolls coming at midnight, so let's combine everything we currently know and what playable race is next, because it looks like exciting times are ahead. So while new playable races are definitely coming, I've already opened a second channel for Raid where I've released over a dozen videos, and currently so much is going on in the game with a new legendary champion that is completely free, Alice the Wanderer, that you can get by simply logging in right after you download the game with my link below, or if you scan the QR code on the screen. Alice's adventure is still active with 5 brand new legendaries from the coolest stories like the Queen of Hearts, the Mad Hatter, the Cheshire Cat, and Alice, that you can of course get by just logging in completely free for the next 7 days. I've already finished this event up. She's currently one of my main characters, and you can check out my review I've made on her on my second channel. At the moment I'm a mid-game player myself with over 20 level 60s, but if you're just starting out, I've got guides on how you can start, how you can avoid some mistakes that I made when I first started playing. You'll be able to advance much quicker from campaigns to dungeons to clan boss and arenas, so that you can get into late game content where it gets really fun. Best of all, Raid is cross-platform, so you can play it anywhere. So click the link in the description or just scan the QR code on the screen and you will get the legendary hero Alice and 2 epic ones for free only with my link. You will get Tagore immediately upon signing up, and you will also get Ugo at level 15 with a whole bunch of stuff in between. Plus, you can use promo code MonkeyKing to get another free legendary Sun Wukong. So check out Raid and check out my second channel, Doran's Arena. So I've been making these playable race type videos for years, often based on some of the datamined models that we've discovered, various hints, but for the first time we have some actual very interesting data that we can kinda cross-examine with the themes of the next 2 expansions and actual datamined models, and we have the most likely races that we're going to see in the next expansion. Recently, a chart came out that gave some really shocking data on who are the most playable races, and some results, while sort of expected, are definitely crazy. For example, we've learned that 15% of all WoW players are playing the Blood Elves, while only 0.2% of the players are playing the Earthen, which gives us the impression that Blood Elves are 50 times more popular than the Earthen. Also, some races like the Draktyr are still not doing that well, and even some really old races like the Pandaren are barely played up to this day. Literally, when we combine the Night Elves, the Blood Elves, the variations of all the elves, like every 3rd WoW player is some type of an elf. And why am I talking about this? I got a whole video examining this data. I feel like this kind of data is actually indicative of what content Blizzard is making and planning to make, and that is because it obviously makes sense. I mean, did you notice the crazy amount of detail that was given to the Night Elves recently, the 2nd most popular race? Why their capital was burned out of all the capitals, why they're the only ones that got a brand new capital with a brand new island. It makes sense that they would push content for the most playable race if that is what people are actually playing. I mean, this might be exactly why the next expansion is literally a Blood Elf expansion focusing on the most played WoW race, and we are getting a new capital for them as well. Why is the Void even invading in quel'thalas in the first place when the focus is on the Sword of Sargeras? That is a good question. There is a plausible theory that they're doing this because they know most people are playing these races and will be more interested in seeing their own races updated. However, if you think about this theory, I mean, the question arises, if that theory is plausible, then why are we currently in an expansion focused on the least popular played race of all time, the Earthen? And I think the answer to that is because big changes obviously happen at Blizzard nearly 180-degree turn that we've all witnessed in the middle of the development. It is no surprise that Blizzard has really started, actually coordinating things and getting themselves together. I mean, you might have noticed recently, especially the past year, that their reputation online is also on the rise as well. After Chris Metz's return, the leadership changed, key figures were fired. I mean, realistically, prior for the past 5 years, I mean, Blizzard has just been doing whatever. I feel like every day someone else had a different idea and direction, and they had like no idea what they were even doing, whether they were going left, whether they were going right. Like, we got the cinematic for Netanos at the start of Shadowlands that he never shows up. We get hints that this person is a villain, that it never follows up. We were told that we would see the troll ancestors in Dragonflight. That never happened, so it really felt like the leadership at the time was planning expansions based on like what type of launch they had that day. Because of that, it is so obvious that Chris Metzen really started getting involved with the end of the War Within and then the next 2 expansions. He really, as we know, came in during Dragonflight, but as we always know with Blizzard, their schedule, they're always working with expansions a few years into the future, so it's almost certain that the War Within was already half finished by the time Chris Metzen came in. You might remember the news were talking about how a new saga is starting, even back at the end of Shadowlands, and we had no idea what he actually meant. I think you can see this with a really strange direction. I mean, things are going from Kazlagar to quel'thalas to Northrend. I feel like they're kind of connecting this after they already started working on something entirely different. So realistically, the earthen were probably just a random spur at the moment. However, the next 2 expansions, realistically, let's be real, I mean, most people are actually excited about them a lot more than they are for the War Within, and it seems like they are a lot more well thought out and planned based on actual data and not just random whims. I mean, they're focusing on the races that are the most played and popular. They're pushing the Void, which is one of the most sought after expansion themes, very popular within the community. Then we're going into Northrend, which was undeniably the most popular continent in WoW of all time, because that is when WoW was at its peak. It's obvious that these decisions aren't just like, you know, let's discover this random isle of the shore or whatever, but this is what people actually like what they know based on evidence. Because of that, I think they will also plan the future on what playable races will be added to the game, and we can not only use this data chart, but we can also use hints that we currently have in the game, as well as datamined models on who these races could be. I personally don't think Blizzard really likes this chart. I mean, who would want to make and build an entire new race that literally 1 in every 200 WoW players is playing? This is not what brings people to come and spend money on the game. Not many people are going in like, damn, I really can't wait to get back to WoW so I can play these reskinned dwarves. However, I can see people saying like, wow, vrykul are now playable, I want to get back into WoW, or Naga, or the ogres, for example. So without yapping any further, let's actually discuss what seems very likely for the next 2 expansions. So, despite the fact that we are in the middle of the War Within and close to closure, there is still a possibility another playable race can be added even in this expansion. It's not out of question. You have seen or heard about the Harnir, which have a lot of data, and they will without a doubt be a big part of the story, even if they're playable in 11.1.5 or 11.2. However, I still don't think, based on the reception that people got during the expansion, that people really care all that much about this race. It just doesn't have this, you know, shocking factor to it. However, it still isn't ruled out. I mean, there's still a possibility. Another big possibility are the ethereals. You can check out my full video on this because there is evidence, a ton of evidence, but the most important bit of evidence is a crazy revamp to the ethereals that happened recently. Ethereals in general have been foreshadowed to be important in the saga for the past few years, with them constantly following us in the background. However, a month or 2 back, we datamined a crazy amount of updated model work for the Ethereals. They got a ton of actual naked models, customizations, different types of bandages, different types of faces, different types of energies that emanate from them, as well as a whole bunch of other customizations, which definitely lean to the side of them being potentially playable. Now, I know this is not exactly the most popular, most sought out after race, but it is an interesting choice. I mean, it is definitely more interesting than the earthen. It is also a race from around the peak of WoW, which was TBC, and something that would also be quite different from some of these reskin type races, because the ethereals are very unique compared to any other race that is currently playable. In regards to them, I mean, it is possible that they could just be setting them up for the War Within, the finale of the War Within, but also for Midnight, when the actual expansion will be fully focused on the Void and the Void. Now, in regards to Midnight in general, ideally, Amani trolls are going to be a big part of the zone, which could make these types of trolls playable. Interesting enough, based on the chart, the troll races are kind of the higher mid-range when it comes to popularity, but people do seem to like the Zandalani, for example, that you can definitely say look pretty badass, just appearance-wise. So, a horde race, the Amani, could be a possibility. However, for the Alliance, another elf variation could totally be possible if they really decide to go the lazy route, but the Naga are definitely not ruled out. I mean, recently there was a lot of foreshadowing if you've been following the Lord, with Ashara returning very soon, and how not all of the Nagas seem to follow her and her crazy void plan, and a big part of them in Nazjatar are just left to their own devices without a leader. Furthermore, there is big talk of a massive Elven reunion in quel'thalas in Midnight, which could actually make Naga playable. Keep in mind, these guys are literally elves evolved by the old gods. Maybe with N'Zoth gone, their form could be toned down and they could make new models that would be more playable with a shapeshift type form for swimming. I think this would be a very interesting, very well popular playable race because they have been playable back in Warcraft 3, and the Naga are definitely highly requested within the community. Now personally, I would definitely also like to see ogres, but so far, I mean, realistically nothing in the World Soul Saga makes them relevant in any way, so I think this is very likely not an option. However, for the finale of the World Soul Saga, we have a really popular and interesting option, as we are going into revamped and very likely enlarged Northrend, where we have two highly requested races. Most importantly, the vrykul, that are an incredibly popular option, but also the Tuskar. Now, to not yap here mindlessly based on the data, it is definitely a little bit weird. I mean, humans are the third most popular race with over 10% of players, so a spin-off of much cooler looking humans would be a very popular option. However, we did get larger humans, the quel'thalas, and they're just not that popular at all based on this data as well. I mean, quel'thalas are nearly 10 times less popular than the vanilla humans, and I think a big part of it is really their look. I mean, a lot of people see the quel'thalas as just large and fat humans, while they see the vrykul as like a badass Viking type human, which is why I think a vrykul would be much more popular. They also got their history tied to the Titans, tied to the Scourge and everything, and it would be a very popular option in like a let's go back to Northrend, a Wrath of the Lich King 2.0 expansion, which would be like the pinnacle of nostalgia bait to sell this expansion. Other option I mentioned are the Tuskar, but I'm really not certain on them anymore. I mean, they did get a massive update in Dragonfight, but they weren't playable in the end, even though it was possible that they could be. But I think while this is also a popular option, that I don't know how to put it simply, like these goofy looking races just don't seem to be that popular, which is evident with the data, like with the Pantheran are barely being played despite being in the game for 15 years. So I'm not certain how much people would really be excited about this. However, based on the data and the data mine information and the teams, we do have a relatively narrow amount of potential playable races for the World Soul Saga. Of course, you know, Blizzard can always surprise us and come up with something completely new. I mean, there is a possibility we discover a completely new race on Evaloran that is unlike any other, something related to the Titan Forged or something with this new Anati Kingdom. But so far, some of the evidence is for the Haronir, Ethereals, Amani Trolls, Naga, Elf variations, as well as the vrykul. Thanks for watching. Check out my video on Anduin finally returning as the King of the Alliance by clicking on the screen, and check out my raid channel by clicking on the screen as well. See you next time.